I'm going to think today about some of the weird things in a story about Mary. We're getting up to Christmas, and this story is the Annunciation is the old-fashioned name of this story. It's a story with a name. But it's troublesome. It's not gentle. It's not sweet. It's trouble. So, stay tuned. I'm Jeremy. I'm the pastor at Community United Methodist Church in North Muskegon, Michigan, otherwise known as communitychurchumc.org. This is the Takeout. Okay, so we're going to try to read a story. If you're a church person, this story is super familiar. You've heard this story. Even if you're not a church person, you may have heard this story. And you've heard it a lot of times because it comes around every year around Christmas. It is, for many people, kind of the thing without which Christmas isn't Christmas. This story right here. It's not the story about Jesus being born. It's before that. And you know what has to happen before a child gets born. Mom has to get pregnant. And for mom to get pregnant, in our normal human experience, that means sex, right? So, that's where the story begins, strangely. And I'm reading to you from Luke, because Luke is the only gospel that really spends any time on this at all. And it has this whole story. And I find the story troubling. Here we go. In the 6th month, this is in Luke chapter 1, starting at 26. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a town in Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin. Okay, so this makes out Gabriel to be a messenger for the guy who's coming to get her pregnant. It's a rough job being Gabriel at this moment. You've got to give news that is not altogether welcome. And you've got to try to polish it and spin it in such a way that it'll be okay. And if you're Luke, you've got to write about it in such a way that it's not actually God raping someone. And that sounds awful, doesn't it? That just sounds awful, destructive, terrible. It's not the first time this issue has come up in the Bible, by the way. Jeremiah complained about how God seemed to have raped him in a way by making him a prophet. This whole idea of being chosen by God turns out to be a little rough. Ask a Jew, how good is it to be God's chosen people? It's not easy. It means that a lot of things go against you and you're held accountable for a really high standard, and that's not easy. So, Gabriel shows up. The virgin in this case is engaged to a guy named Joseph. And Joseph is a descendant of David. And the virgin's name is Mary. The angel came to her and said, "Hey there, favored one, the Lord is with you." Now normally we think that all sounds really nice. Favored one. God thinks especially highly of you, but remember that whole idea of being God's chosen one, this is troublesome. It tends to bring difficulty again and again. So no doubt, verse 29, she was much perplexed by his words and pondered what sort of greeting this might be. The angel said to her, and when we say angel, it doesn't necessarily mean he's got wings or he's shining or anything. It might just be a guy. He's a messenger. He's a messenger for God, somehow showing up with a message. We don't know the look, the sound, any of that. The angel said to her, "Don't be afraid, Mary." And whenever someone says, "Don't be afraid," it makes you afraid, right? Don't be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. What, I have done something especially good? I've been, won the prize for most moral girl in Nazareth? What? And now, the special grand prize, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you will name him Jesus. You're going to be pregnant. That's what you get for being favored by God. You get to be a teenage pregnancy. And the dad is God. And you're already, engaged. So this might mess with that too. I mean, we'll try and work it out with Joe, but there it is. God's going to make you pregnant, and it's going to mess up your whole plan for life. Okay? Whether you like it or not. There's no permission getting, and that is troubling. There's no, will you let me? No, it's, here it is. You're going to be pregnant. And things happen. Life changes. Hard things come. Not just to Mary. Hard things come to lots of us. And when they do, when you get a terminal diagnosis, when you get a chronic diagnosis, when you get served with divorce papers, when you have to declare bankruptcy, when you lose your job, when your spouse dies or child dies. At these moments, then, bad things have happened. Bad things keep coming. And faithful people try to say to you, well, God's trying to do something good in the middle of all this. And you say, oh, well, God can keep all God's good things. Thank you very much. I really don't need that kind of help. I really don't need that kind of direction. God can keep it. And I don't doubt that Mary was thinking the same thing. Once you take this pregnancy and go to somewhere else, someone else, don't mess with me. You're messing with my life, my whole life. And so he says some things. He'll be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his ancestor David. He'll reign over the house of Jacob forever. Of his kingdom there will be no end. You could do this with any other. There are thousands and thousands of descendants of David by this time. It's been 1,000 years since David. If you're looking for a descendant of David whom you can make into a new king, a Messiah, then just go ahead and adopt somebody, and that would be fine. And you wouldn't have to do this messing with my life or someone else's life. Why does this have to happen? It's troublesome. God coming in and messing up life, messing up plans. It hurts, it messes. There it is. Mary said to the angel, and I just want you to think about what tone of voice she uses. How can this be? Since I'm a virgin. Are you even allowed to do that? Isn't that a rule? If I'm a virgin, I don't get pregnant? I can't be a pregnant virgin? That's stupid. It's crazy talk. Yeah, it is. She's done absolutely nothing. She hasn't even been raped. She hasn't even let somebody take advantage of her. Hasn't even had a drink at a bar that led to Lord knows what. It's not been that kind of a life. And the angel said to her, as if this is an answer to how this can possibly happen. Well, it'll happen like this. And she doesn't really want to know. And if you listen to this and think this is the story of how sex with God happens, it's just nothing but trouble. The Holy Spirit, says the angel, will come upon you. The power of the Most High will overshadow you. That sounds absolutely terrifying. Therefore, the child to be born will be holy. This is holy? This is what makes for a holy child? Couldn't you take a perfectly nice, good child and say, I choose this one. Make this child holy. That's what happened to Samuel. It's what happens to John the Baptist. It went just fine, thank you. Why not just do that again? Will be called the Son of God. You're doing all this so you can literally call someone Son of God. God comes, messes up our plans. It can certainly seem as though God is setting us up for misery, setting us up for a fall, setting us up for trouble, leading us down primrose paths that dalliance treads, just generally messing with us. And it's not fair to simply be a preacher and say, and God has a plan, and God is working out a plan. Now sometimes that plan isn't nice, and sometimes the plan isn't easy, and sometimes it takes a life that was making sense and it makes it not make sense. And sometimes God getting into your life is messy. And yet I'm still the preacher who tells you, let God into your life. If God isn't there already, let God in. If God is in there some, let God in more. And sometimes we resist, and sometimes we are reluctant, and we say, I don't really want God in all of my life. I want God in some of my life. And we understand this is kind of maybe how Mary was feeling. I was okay being a person who prays. I was okay with being a person who goes to synagogue. I was okay with following the law. I was okay with being a nice person, for heaven's sakes. I was okay with all of these things, but do you have to destroy things? And God has to do what God has to do, and I find this story troubling. I find this story very troubling indeed. I find Mary's got a difficult place in here. Like everyone who speaks to a representative from God, she gets news that isn't always what she wants, that isn't always good at all, and certainly upsets all our apple carts. I'm not going to tell you, friends, that it's easy to be a follower of God. God gives you hard things. God gives us illness. Ultimately, God gives us the gift of death, which is a gift we would just as soon do without often. And yet it becomes the way to life. That's difficult. God's ways are often difficult. They lead us hard places. Are you ready to go wherever God leads? That's hard. This story right here goes all the way to Jesus teaching, goes all the way to Jesus dying on a cross, to Jesus rising again, to the church. It's a story that's still going on, and you have a chance to be part of it every day. I want to warn you, not to scare you away, but to tell you this is reality. That sometimes the choice to follow God leads us to places where we don't really want to go. That God has things in mind that we don't understand, that we don't like, that this story, even if you're not a believer in this story yet, the theology here is striking. Even if you don't believe there's a virgin birth, even if you don't go along with the church affirming that doctrine in the 19th century that Mary remained forever a virgin, even if all of this is so messy as to be unbelievable, I guarantee you, God invites us to a messy life, to a changed, different life. The Bible shows us stories that don't make things easy and invites us to be part of it all. It doesn't always give us a choice. God invites us, or God just tells us, this is how it's going to be, whether you choose it or not. This is what's happening. We don't have to like it. Well, I hope I haven't ruined Christmas for you. I don't think I can do that for you. I pray that you open yourself up to whatever it is that God puts in front of you. I hope you can find good in the challenges that are in front of you right now, and the challenges that are certainly going to come in your life down the line further. God bless you, because God does love you. Go in peace.